Welcome to Kentucky Football Nation. Let's talk about the Indiana-Kentucky football series, which ended 20 years ago in 2005. But they played about 40 games before that in a nice series. It started well. We played Indiana in 1893. So between 1893 and 1927, Indiana was 5-2 against us. Then we didn't play again to the 60s. So from 67 to 79, Indiana and Kentucky played 7 times. Indiana was 6-1. So they dominated us between 67 and 79. Then you get to the 80s. And one thing I liked about this series, being a Kentucky fan, is both teams were evenly awful most of the time. These are two schools that were dominating in basketball. Bobby Knight, we had Rick Pitino. We were dominating basketball, and then before that, Eddie Sutton and Joby Hall, whoever. You guys had Bobby Knight most of the 70s and 80s and 90s. But yeah, we used football just waiting to get to basketball, kind of looking at it. So I know, living here in Indiana, I moved here in 92, and yeah, nobody cared about IU football at all. Still to this day, Indiana, I got to dog out people in the state of Indiana. Indiana finally had a good team. Out of all these years, I've been here 32 years, they had a crappy team every year. You know what everybody said? I'm an Indiana basketball fan, but I'm a Notre Dame football fan. And I would say, no. It's one school per fan. You can't have a wife and a girlfriend and say, oh, baby, I love you, except, August through December, then I love this other person. So I always hated that. So many people, Indiana fans, cowards. I'm calling you cowards, Indiana fans, because you wouldn't say that, at least here in southern Indiana, and I can't speak for Indianapolis or north of there, but Indianapolis down to Evansville here, you guys were, you didn't want to feel the pain. So I'm a Notre Dame football fan. No, you just didn't want to feel the pain. Real fans, you suck it up and you suffer, just like we did, all us Kentucky fans. We didn't sit there and say we were Louisville fans or Western Kentucky fans or whatever. I always hated that. But let's get back to the series. So let's talk about the teams. In the 1980s, Indiana was 59-64 in the decade of the 80s. In the decade of the 80s, Kentucky was 41-62. That was with Jerry Claiborne. He actually did pretty well. I mean, we won some games. We beat Tennessee. We beat Florida. We won some SEC games. So then in the 90s, Indiana was 48-47. Because Bill Mallory had first 3 or 4 years of the 90s had some really good teams. He was 8-4, 7-4. We, on the other hand, in the 1990s had Bill Curry. So we were 44-69. So between 2000 and 2005, when we quit playing the series, Indiana was 20-48. Kentucky was equally bad from 2000 to 2005, 20-48. That's how similar these schools were, okay? They were no good. In these games, there's no telling what you would see. You very rarely did you see good football. I mean, every once in a while they play a game, but no. So we talked about the 70s, Indiana dominated. In the 80s, Kentucky 5-3. Jerry Claiborne was 5-3 against Lee Corso. Sam Weiss was the coach for 1 year. I didn't know that. 83 in Indiana, and Bill Mallory. Bill Mallory was a good coach. Then in the 90s, Kentucky was 6-4. Most of that was Hal Mumme at the end of the decade, not Bill Curry. And then you guys, it was against Cam Cameron and Bill Mallory. And Cam Cameron couldn't beat the air raid. And they had Antoine Randall L. Now, I went to one of those games at Bloomington. We had Dusty Bonner. It was 99. We still won like 44-35. It was always an entertaining game then because at least Cam Cameron could score and Hal Mumme could score. We're going to talk about some really bad games here in a minute. But so they officially started this. What was the name of the bucket that we played for the annual game from 1987 to 1999 was the Bourbon Barrel game. Back in, I don't know what it was in the 80s and 90s, the beer barrel, the bourbon barrel, the OO barrel, all these barrels. So Kentucky wanted to play for the Bourbon Barrel because, hell, Indiana and Kentucky weren't going to get a trophy for any other game. because we weren't going to get an SEC, or you weren't going to get a big Indiana wasn't going to get a Big Ten, and we weren't going to get an SEC. So like, hey, let's play for a bourbon barrel. But in 1999, two of our basketball players, or excuse me, two or three of our football players were in a car accident. They were intoxicated. It was their fault, and one of them passed away. So of course, then we got to punish everybody and take the bourbon barrel away. So after 99, we were just playing for pride, I guess. Nobody got a barrel out of it. But I didn't want to talk about. There was one particular game. And there are always these polls on YouTube about what's the worst game you ever saw. Like Kentucky, we got beat by Florida on national TV in 1995 or 1994. Yes, or 3. I can't remember. 72-7 on national TV by Florida. Go back and watch my Steve Spurrier. I have a Bill Curry pissed off Steve Spurrier video. They had a beef going, a real personal beef going with one another. So Bill Curry pissed off the wrong guy, because then Steve Spurrier, we played on national TV twice. And the last year, Bill Curry, we got beat 65-0. We got beat 7. But the worst game I didn't watch it. Kentucky and Indiana were never on national. They ain't gonna put that game on TV. So you would listen to it at 6 or 7 o'clock on the radio, wait for the news to go off, put your VCR tape in, and set it to tape after the news went off, and it was on tape delay, and you could watch it later. So 1996, September 21st, right here in this house, right above me, where I'm sitting in a chair. I'm down in my basement right now. But I was sitting in a chair, and I go, oh, I'm going to listen to Indiana, Kentucky, 1996. Now, Indiana was 2-0 at that point. We were 0-2. Bill Curry had been told, if you have a losing season this season in 1996, you're gone. So on September 21st, 1996, I can't find a box score for this game. I read something about it was raining during this game. I can find the score. I can find out the attendance. If anybody can find a box score on this game, please put it in the description, because I would like to see how many first downs. It was the worst game I ever listened to. Okay, so the game starts. It was just a turnover after bad play. So we would cross the 50-yard line, throw an interception. Indiana would cross the 50-yard line, fumble the ball. They get to halftime, it's 0-0. Thinking, man, okay, that was a fast, half of football. It was just one error. It sounded like the Bad News Bears. Then we get in the third quarter, and I thought, okay, halftime starting 0-0. Maybe we can win, 14, 17, 14, something. I don't know, 10-7, whatever. So the third quarter starts. Same exact thing happens. Kentucky's can't make a first down. Indiana can't make a first down. If they do make a first down, they fumble, they turn the ball over. And I'm thinking, man, this is the worst game I ever listened to. And I got bored with Ralph Hacker and the Kentucky broadcast. He was kind of boring on the radio. This is after Kaywood Leffert has retired. So I decided to switch over. This is the only good decision I made that night, and listen to Don Fisher on the Indiana network. Now, Don Fisher, I think he's still there. Very animated guy. So I said, I'm going to listen to the fourth quarter. I'm going to listen to Indiana's broadcast because I'm getting bored. This game is awful. And man, he was just sitting there ripping both teams. That's what I loved about him. He was upset. He was mad. He was saying, this is the worst game I ever watched. I can't believe these two teams are football teams. Once again, fourth quarter starts. Same exact thing. Can't make a first down. Drop the pass. Drop this. Fumble the snap. Fumble the punt. Then we fumble the punt. We missed the field goal. They missed the field goal. It got down to, okay, we get the ball back with like 2 minutes left. And you're thinking, oh, man, is this going to go to overtime and end in a tie at 0? Somehow we threw a long pass over the 50-yard line and was able to cross the 50-yard line. And we kicked a field goal to win 3-0 in the final seconds of that game. No, I did not. I took the VCR tape out, and now I'm not taping that. I wish I would have now, because I'm curious to see the box score to see how many first downs did each team get. There's no way they had 300 yards of offense, either one of them. And I don't know how many times they turned the ball over, how many first downs. Like I said, if anybody can find that, hey, man, put that in the description. But the Indiana series was fun. It's not going to be back now. Indiana's finally got a good team. I know they didn't want to accept the pain in the beginning. Now you should see it now. All those people that were Notre Dame football fans and now they were Indiana basketball fans. Now that Indiana has a good team with Kirk Cignetti, oh my God, I was there the whole time. No, you weren't. There was nobody wearing an Indiana football jersey or shirt anywhere in Southern Indiana that I was at. So no, you were not. If you're saying you were lying. You were not there. Well, okay, maybe one or two of you, but that's it. So anyway, I'm at 10 minutes. It was a fun series. That was the worst game I ever listened to. I would rather, when we're getting beat by Florida, at least Florida was scoring. I mean, but when nobody can move the ball, nobody can do anything. It was not entertaining. And I know Don Fisher said as he was signing off, it was the worst game he ever called. I don't know if he got a worse game after that. But no, Kentucky and Indiana, it was a good series. It was a good football series because we were pretty evenly matched. As I said, Indiana ended up winning that series 18-17 and one tie. I thought there was going to be two ties there at the end. But after 96 season, Bill Mallory got fired and Bill Curry got fired. So after that game, it didn't turn out good for anybody. Listen, if you are watching this channel and you have not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. I'll be putting shorts on. I'm going to do some videos like this, the history of Kentucky football until the season starts. Go back and watch my Steve Spurrier, Bill Curry video if you want to hear a funny story. Well, it wasn't funny on our end because he started kicking our ass because we pissed him off, like I said. But it is a fun story. Listen, guys, I'll be doing more videos, as I said, trying to keep it fresh during the summer. I don't know enough about all the other SEC teams to sit here and talk about Oklahoma or Alabama. There's plenty of channels if you go watch the Good Old Boy Network if you want to see something about Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. But anyway, thanks for watching.